TJR, and I've just read an article this morning that has kind of startled me. Now, I'm going to quote from this article, which is from the Hypebot newsletter, which is a newsletter that I do subscribe to, and I'm just going to quote right now. A new analysis by Amit Daryanani of RBC Capital Markets looks at the revenue that Apple Music and iTunes returns to Apple. According to this study, just 3% of Apple users subscribe to Apple Music. And now, Apple users means people that have installed an Apple iOS. So this includes iPhone users who are, using a Windows-based computer. Now, Apple Music is the music streaming service that Apple started roughly 3 years ago to compete with services like Spotify and Tidal. According to the article, Apple Music is contributing 12% of the revenue generated by Apple's services division. This is lower than iTunes, which generates 22%, with the App Store generating the largest part of that net revenue, which is 33%. Now, once again, this is just Apple Services division and not a part of any of hardware sales or anything like that. Now, according to this article, and I'm quoting again, this looks even less rosy when you look at the low gross margin that it delivers, which is lower than all the others, which is at 15%, and the App Store at 85%. Now, personally, I tried out Apple Music during the initial free trial, but I was disappointed with it, so I canceled before the free trial ended. I currently use both Spotify and Tidal for music streaming. But when I read that only 3% of Apple users use Apple Music, even I was shocked. Apple has a huge built-in base of, iOS users that are currently already using their, computers, mobile devices. So I figured that a lot more of that base would be using it. Now, the reason I didn't like Apple Music is because I believe that there is more to life than streaming. I still buy physical music. I import that physical music into iTunes and sync it to my mobile device. I don't have to rely on internet or data connection to be able to play my music, and I personally like that. But I do like to use streaming to sample and listen to just about anything that I'm even remotely curious to hear. I do also like to use streaming services to create playlists of songs that I don't want to own. But I like keeping my library separate from my streaming, and I don't want my streaming to control my library. And this is why I discontinued Apple Music. It's too controlling. It's a streaming service that wants to control my library. Now, when I first started using it, it started changing some of the album artwork on my library for some of the albums that I own. And it wanted to change it to what it thought it should be. In some cases, it even changed certain album titles and information. Apple Music wants to be the interface for my iTunes, and I don't want it to be. I want it to work like Spotify and Tidal, where it is a separate thing from my music library. And I didn't like this at all. In fact, I hated it. So I discontinued Apple Music during the free trial period. I plugged my mobile device, back into my computer, and into my iTunes, and I resynced my library on my hard drive to my mobile device and continued on with Spotify and Tidal. Now, I want to make it clear, this is not an Apple rant. I use Apple computers. I use iPad and iPhone, of course. And even though I buy almost no music from iTunes, I love iTunes for cataloging and ordering my physical music collection on my hard drive and for making it easily accessible on my computer and mobile device. Apple Music is the first Apple product / service that I have been really disappointed with. Now, the reasoning behind why Apple Music does this was explained to me by one of their associates at AppleCare when I called to question this during the free trial period. Apple believes that streaming is the future, that we will all stop purchasing music and that everyone will want to have just one interface for both their library and their streaming. And one interface would be great if it wasn't making decisions about my library that I don't want it making. Now, Apple has kind of done these types of things in the past where they just decide, hey, this is not the future, this is. Apple was the first to ditch the 3.5-inch floppy disk drives from their computers. The reason? They believed it was obsolete and that everything was going to optical disk drives. They were right. They also have ditched having optical disk drives in their computers for the same reason. They believe that everything will be cloud-based and that optical disk drives will be obsolete. And if you really want a disk drive, you can plug in an external one into one of your USB ports. And that's what I currently do because I like having the optical disk drive for obvious reasons. Now, in spite of my disappointments with Apple Music, I figured, hey, it's just me. I'm just old-fashioned. I'm not with it, you know? I figured that most users, and especially younger users, would be happy with Apple Music. So, yeah, I was really shocked to read this story and to read those numbers. Apple Music, in spite of what I feel about it, Apple Music has put a lot of effort into creating curated playlists and original radio station content as part of Apple Music. I've heard some of the radio stations. I think they're very well done. To me, in spite of my misgivings, it should be a premier streaming service. And I would have thought that a lot more of their existing customer base would be using it. Now, while I'm sure that a lot of iOS users might have rejected Apple Music for the same reasons that I did, I can't believe that that's the only reason. I have a feeling there are probably other reasons out there why it's just not been more adopted by its existing user base. So I'd be really curious to hear your experiences. Did you try Apple Music only to discontinue it? What was your reason? I'd really love to hear. And if you are happy with Apple Music, if you are one of those users, would love to hear your thoughts on that too. Anyways, though, just had to really talk about this. So once again, looking forward to your comments. Tell me what you think. And this is TJR. Thank you so much for watching. And if this is your first time, please subscribe to the channel. Thanks. Bye-bye.